Welcome to Dale Carnegie Training Japan. Today's topic, how to disagree agreeably. We're going to look at a number of your hot buttons and what happens with disagreements. Now, we know we're perfect, but let's give the benefit of the doubt to other people before we are too certain of our own opinion, and let's learn that all-important cushion to make sure that our opinion gets heard and that our opportunity to maintain the relationship is still there, because we can disagree, but it doesn't have to be at the damage of the actual relationship. So, what are some of the topics that are related to your hot buttons? Think about things that come up which get you really hot under the collar. It might be politics, it might be sport, it might be religion, it might be youth, it might be older people, it could be politicians, it could be anything. But there probably are a few things that you really hold dear, things about which you have strong likes and dislikes, strong opinions. So start to nominate to yourself what they might be. This will help you to start thinking about, okay, this is an area that I know is a sensitive area for me. I'm going to make sure that I am bracing myself for possible arguments when these topics come up. Now, what is your range of reactions when you get differing opinions? Does your body language betray that you disagree with the other person's opinion? Is there something in what you say? Are you cutting people off? Start to think about what are your typical chemical reactions. And I say chemical reactions because our emotions are usually driven by the chemicals in our bodies. What are the sort of chemical reactions that start when you know that you actually can't agree with someone else's opinion? So start to nominate what happens. Do you find that your temperature goes up? Do you find that the hair on the back of your neck stands up? Do you find that your pulse rate increases? Do you find your breathing becomes more shallow? Do you find that your body tenses? There's bound to be a number of things which will be typical reactions that you can identify and know that, okay, in certain circumstances, I'm starting to feel that I'm getting into a situation where I'm going to have some strong feelings about a particular topic. And then look at the typical results. What happens when these hot buttons are pushed? And you start to get into an argument with people? What happens? What's the outcome of that argument? What's the result? Is it something that you actually regret later? Are they things that you think, I wish I hadn't said that, I wish I hadn't written that? Are they things that you look at and you think, you know what, I'm burning bridges here, I'm creating enemies, I've got to be more careful, I've got to learn to rein in my emotions, I've got to be in more control? Start to weigh up what are the costs of just continuing with your typical usual reactions. And then particularly look at what's the effect on the relationships. Are you burning relationships? Are you injuring relationships? Are you losing friends? Are you losing colleagues, cooperation? Are you creating enemies, rivals? When you get into arguments because your hot button's been pushed, what is the downside on the people around you? What is the downside to the connections you have and your personal brand? What's happening with all of those things? So here are 6 handy rules for how to disagree agreeably. Now, rule number 1, give the benefit of the doubt. Now, what that means is that before you react, think, well, I might be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong. I don't feel I'm wrong. But there is a chance that I actually might be wrong. So before I hoe into this person and their opinion, I'll just give them the benefit of the doubt and accept that even though I don't feel what they're saying is correct, they may possibly be right. That way, your approach to their opinion becomes less hostile, becomes more maybe questioning, trying to get a bit more information around what they're thinking. Just take some of the heat out of yourself and the tone of your voice. Body language, keep that calm. The second one is rule number 2, listen to learn and understand. Now, we are shocking listeners, all of us. Something happens to our hearing when we hear no. Now, we might hear no actually through our eyes, watching the body language of the person, or we might hear it through the anticipation of where they are going with this particular sentence or paragraph that's coming towards us. We are so quick. We are so fast. We jump ahead and we presume and we think, oh, yeah, I know where this is going. Oh, I know what they're going to say. So we leap ahead. And about this point in time, though, our brain gets taken over by all of these internal thoughts about why they are wrong and we are right, and hundreds of good reasons that they should do whatever it is we want them to do or stop doing whatever it is we want them to do. So we actually become deaf to the reason. Now, one of the ironies of life is that people often give us an indication of a negative response or an opposite response to the one we want, and then they might follow up with the context or the background or the reasoning or the why behind the particular position they hold. Unfortunately, when we hear that no, we go deaf. And then we do not hear the context. We don't get into the reasoning. We don't actually listen to the why, and therefore there's no understanding. So we are now full bore charging down the highway here, about to let loose on all the good reasons that we are correct. And we probably jump right in. Don't let them finish what they're saying. Jump right in over the top, interrupt them, and then plow on in there and blow up the relationship. Rule number 3. Take responsibility with I statements. That means we're not using you statements. You have to consider this or that. You have forgotten something or other. You are not fully understanding the key importance of this particular project. You need to think more carefully about this particular issue. Once we get into those you statements, then it creates a barrier. It creates a real wall between the two people who are trying to have a discussion. And bristles, the other person. They feel they're being attacked. They feel, this isn't business. This is personal. They're very quick to jump to the personal. And we're better to say things like, well, I might be wrong, but I think this, and I'm not sure, but I've seen this in the past, and I may not be getting the full picture, but I think this based on what I know to date, and be a bit more conciliatory around the conversation of how you're phrasing the actual interaction with that person, and try to eliminate the accusatory you. Now, number 4, the big Bertha, a cushion. What does that mean? Well, a cushion's that thing you sleep on or you lean next to on the couch, but a cushion is magic. Magic. Now, the distance, both physically and metaphorically, between our mouth and our ear is so short. We are so quick. we see the body language, or we get a hint of where the conversation's going, and the brain goes into overdrive, and bang, boom, out comes the first thing that pops into our head as our first response. Rarely would the first response ever be our best or considered response. What we've got to train ourselves to do here is not lurch forth into a diatribe with our first response, or some ill thought out commentary, perhaps poorly chosen words or accusatory, you this or you that type of approach. We need to have a little break. Now, a cushion actually is a very innocent, nice, calm, neutral sentence, or a couple of sentences. And it only has to be 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds long. It doesn't have to be, a massive tome. It can be quite short. But the beauty of a cushion is that it should be neutral, so it doesn't inflame the other person or yourself. It shouldn't be something that people can take exception to or get extremely unhappy about that comment or your first response. It should be something that you let them finish, and then you come out with something like very neutral. Yes, that is an important consideration, and I think, yes, we should discuss that. Now, who's going to argue with that? You haven't said you agree, disagree. You just said it's an important consideration. We should discuss it. Now, in the short time that you go into that type of cushion, you have thinking time. Your brain is so quick. You can now go to your second and possibly even third response. But that word but or the word however often pop out because we don't use the cushion. So we hear their statement, and next thing coming out of our mouth is but, however, which are critical keywords for I don't agree with you, or here comes the resistance, or look out, here comes an opposing opinion. So we've got to be very careful that we don't include but or however in our cushion. We need the cushion to come out with something very neutral. So no buts or howevers, keep that well and truly out of our vocabulary. So we let the cushion do the work, provide a little bit of thinking space, a little bit of breathing space. Now we get into our opinion with evidence, and this is just so clever. We don't get into our opinion, disagree with their opinion. We get into context. We go straight into context with evidence. We go straight into the background. We go straight into a story. Every single person on this planet, and every culture, grew up listening to stories as babies and young children from their parents. So we are all very open to a story. So we go into a story. We go into a bit of storytelling, but this story is rich. It's very rich with detail. It's rich with people they know. It's rich with locations they know. It's rich with situations and scenarios that they know. And so you're talking about things like, well, I was talking to Bob on the conference call on Tuesday. We had that conference call on Tuesday. He was in London, and he mentioned to me about this particular project they've been working on, and he actually had Tom and Maria was in the room as well, and they also talked about this. And so you're populating the story with a lot of color and movement and action and people that they know, and so they can get into the story very quickly. And in the context there, as you lay it out, you're filling in the background, you're filling in the why of what you're about to tell that person. You're talking about the drivers for you to hold an opposite opinion to what they've got. So you're putting out the reasoning. Now, the absolute magic in this is you can disagree with the conclusion I draw from my context, but you cannot easily disagree with my context because the context is real. It's an actual situation. Yes, I conclude this from my context. You can say, well, I don't agree. Fine. But the actual context, you can't disagree with it. The gem here is that you get out the reasoning, and they are listening. Their ears are wide open. They are not deaf to you. You've not said no. You've not said but. You've not said however. It sounds like you're still open to agree with them. They are listening, and they're following the story. They're in the story. You've got them. Get the evidence out. Get the context out. Then, having done that, state your opinion. And you might say something like, well, I think we should do this, some call to action or some alternative to maybe what they suggested, and then finish it off with the coup de grace. Finish it off with just the perfect ending, your benefits, right? Your benefits that are attached to your particular conclusion or alternative. So evidence wrapped up in the context, action that you suggest we should take, and then last thing, ringing in our ears, the benefit, the absolute benefit of doing this. So there are the 6 rules for disagreeing agreeably. Now, withholding judgment and the benefit of the doubt, this is very useful, but it's extremely difficult. You know, we tend to be so sure of ourselves. We tend to be so certain of ourselves. You really have to apply some discipline here to not be jumping in with your opinion. You've just got to withhold your own judgment and try to think about what they've said or the thing they've suggested, and if possible, even just ask them a few questions to flesh out a bit more detail of what's driving their behavior before you say anything about what you're thinking. Because, you know, you may, when you sort of walk, a mile in their shoes type of thing, start to see things from a different viewpoint. And you might look at the historical situation with this person you're dealing with. It might be you've got a bit of history. It might be, your division and their division in the past. It might be something happened, back in the day, you were coming up through the ranks, bit of rivalry going on there. There might have been a win for you that they resented, or vice versa. There might be a bit of history there. Might be useful just to put through the lens of that history your current emotion. Is this being driven by your ego? Are you actually revengeful now about something that happened a long time in the past? Or are you dragging up, old disputes from the past or old enmities from the past? Is there a bit more behind this than meets the eye? And the other one is situational. Is this something that, you're looking at it and, you're not seeing it in a full context. You're just seeing it in a very narrow range. You're just seeing part of the puzzle here, not the whole puzzle, because that's, the thing you're focused on is quite narrow beam. What's going on there with this particular situation? Are there things about this situation that you may not know? Are there things about this that you may not have heard about? Are there things about this which have not been revealed? Are there things about this which, could be contingent and have some particular, influence on how you might perceive what they're suggesting? So it's good to give the other person, painful as it may be, the benefit of the doubt before you jump in. And you know what? There's no harm. Let them finish their sentence. Let them finish what they are saying. Wait till they have exhausted themselves with their viewpoint and hold judgment. Wait, just, stay there and just absorb what they're saying and get the cogs turning and think through it and show them that you're thinking through what they've said and you're not jumping in. You're really considering, you're giving a lot of thought to what they're saying. You're giving a lot of space to what they're saying. You're not just being, running off of the mouth or just, jumping in. You're actually giving it due consideration. So, again, a couple of other good cushions. I hear what you're saying. I appreciate your view. It doesn't particularly matter the words of the cushion, long as it's neutral and long as it's something that gives you enough time to get the old brain into gear. Trust me, we are so quick. We can get to that second and third response within 5, 6, 7 seconds. Not a problem. Now, when we come to the evidence, I talked before about storytelling and evidence and that richness. So there might be some demonstration that took place of a particular, might be a marketing program or a marketing launch or something you'd refer to. There might be something that demonstrates what you're saying, something that was in the media or something that you can refer to. And then there are examples. In that rich storytelling, you're going to talk about some examples of what happened somewhere else or happened some other time that influences the context to lead to the opinion you have today. Facts, throw in the facts, lots of facts. People know these facts to be true because they're real. They're from scenarios that everyone's dealt with. You know what's going on. Exhibits, that may be an exhibit. There may be something referred to that proves the point. There might be analogies. There might be an analogy is a great way of taking two things which are not actually normally linked together and linking them together by way of bringing out a point, by way of illustrating an idea. It's a great thing with analogies that you can make something rather complicated, very easy to understand by linking it to two simple comparisons. Testimonials, you might be able to refer to someone's opinion. There might be an expert in the field. There might be someone in the company. There might be someone in the media recently. There might have been a book. There might be an authority. There might be someone you can draw on that can lend weight to the conclusion that you're going to put forth. And finally, of course, statistics, they're great. Having statistics, it comes back to that type of factual base. That's, you can't beat those sorts of things. So, but this should be in the story. The story should be rich in this sort of this detail. And so, as we say, evidence defeats doubts. If people doubt you and you've got truckloads of evidence, well, then their doubt is defeated and it disappears. So here we have a nice graphic where we can think about where we're going with this. You have, first of all, you hear what they say. Ask yourself, well, what do I think about that? That should probably take a nanosecond because you will probably have an opinion immediately. So you know what it is you think. You probably think the opposite of whatever they're saying. Now, here's the key part. Why do I think that? This is good because it just starts to challenge a little bit. What's the basis of this opinion? And another great one. Well, what evidence do I have that backs up what I think? Is this just what I think based on nothing? Or is this an emotional chemical reaction because I didn't like the sound of what they were saying? So you're starting to just have a little pause there, just reflecting, thinking about what they're saying. And then we go into the cushion, right? We go into that little cushion there of, well, I think it's very important that we consider all the aspects of this, or yes, I hear what you're saying. I can see that. So then you could go into an example, or you could just start into the story. Actually, with the story, it's great to get into a rich story straight away. It was midday last week. I was on the phone to London with Bob. We just finished a long conversation about the budgeting, and he brought up and you go into this story straight away. And then as you're getting towards the end, as you're getting towards your conclusion, you're going to say, well, you say, my example to illustrate why I think this is a good idea is blah, blah, blah. And the evidence clearly shows, because we've got these statistics or this testimonial, or we've got this opinion, or we've got whatever it is, that's why I'm thinking we should do it this way. So you've got this little flow diagram here that helps you to get your ideas heard, because once we say no, or once it sounds like we're going to disagree with them, they go deaf, which is a bit of a problem, right? Because then they don't actually hear the reasoning. Key point, don't react. Wait till they finish. Get into the cushion. The cushion is the key. Once you start with that cushion, you can bring out your reasoning, your context, the background, justify what you're recommending, and be heard, because they'll still be listening to you. If you don't do that, then you're going to find a lot of resistance. Good luck.